All right, so we're gonna do spouts for bottles or a bottleneck. So if you want to do something that kind of looks like this, right? So it has that hour shape. This is a kind of classic skinny bottleneck. They come in different sizes. Different bottles have different things. We'll start with one that's. I'm just starting with a little bit of clay here. I just want to roll it a little bit, get it relatively even. And this one it isn't tapered or anything, it's just a straight coil, but it's kind of fat because I have a short bottle, right, but it's kind of wide, so I need something a little bit wider that's going to fit on here to make the bottle. All right, so I have that little plug. Now you can, if you find anything that's round that you can use to do this, it's better that it's out of wood. If it's like the back of a wooden spoon or something, you can push this through. So I can just push that straight down. And now I'm going to take it and roll it a little bit. Okay, so now that's just a straight cylinder, right? I want to change it so it looks better for a bottle. So if I take this same technique here, if I find something else that's round, and just roll that through the middle. I'm getting more of an hourglass shape to it. You can see the space where I rolled through there. And now it's just, you just kind of start pinching the clay and stretching it out. Now you could shape this, cut it, do whatever you want. I mean, this is close to being a pretty good bottle neck anyway, right? But it's a little clunky and fat, so I want to change that. I'm going to get rid of this stuff and I want to clean this up. So I'm going to start pinching this. I'm going to hold it where I just constricted it a little bit, like that, and then start to pinch out the top, make it flare out more. And I can move my thumb sort of like this, and really start to stretch it out. While you're pinching, make sure that things are even. You know, if it's too thick in one place, you gotta pinch a little harder. But you don't want it to get super thin and crack. And I'm going to cut some of the top off so it'll be a little straighter. And get rid of some of these cracks. You know, pay attention to the little details. This could work in both ways. Like it could be wider there and this could end up being the bottleneck too, right? Depending on the shape you're going for. So I'm going to try to constrict this just a little more. Keeping my finger inside there so it doesn't collapse when I put any pressure on it. Alright. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this part and clean that up. cutting it at an angle so that when I clean it up, it'll look more like a bottleneck. Missed a spot. Maybe just fix it. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. All right, so now I'm gonna hold this, get a damp sponge, and I'm gonna separate my fingers and let the sponge ride through there and work on this rim. You know, whatever you do, make sure you're being intentional about what you're doing. You don't want to leave things crooked if they're going to be, you know, not meant to be crooked, if that's not your vision. So you can see how that's starting to clean up and look smooth and round. Stretch out the bottom a little bit. I'll probably end up cutting the bottom. Now if I use this one, yeah, that looks a little big and awkward for this pot. I don't really like it. But we'll play around with it a little bit and see if we can get it better. You can also add texture to it. You can use your thumb, you can use tools, whatever you have at your disposal to make it look cool. One thing that really messed things up, if this part doesn't look round and finished, like the rim part, the very lip of the bottle, then it's gonna throw the whole thing off. It's gonna look like you did a bad job. Roll it a little more. One good thing about making spouts like this is there's no seams or anything, right? You're not attaching. The only place you would attach is when you start to put it on the pot. Like I said, I think this is probably too big for that particular pot. I would end up making a small one for it. But that is one way to do a spout or a bottleneck. You can make this any size. It could be taller, skinnier, it could be fatter, wider, whatever you wanted to do. Just set that over here. So another way you could do it is if you have a little slab, which I don't. Let's see if we can make one really fast. I want this to be pretty thin. Just stretch it out a little more. Now trim it up. Get some straight lines. Let's try to add a little texture to it. Let's see what happens. I can take something, depending on how wide I want this, and I don't want it this wide because this is going to be too fat for the pot. So let's try a skinnier one. I need something a little sort of in between, but I don't have that right now, so we're just going to go small. So that's my line here. So if I just draw, that's where that's going to end. But I also want to cut it a little funky. You can score it and slip it. Which would probably have been a better idea, but I'm going to roll it. I lost kind of my pattern there, so I don't really like it. But it's all about giving you an idea, right? So you can see now this spout, I mean, it would work as far as like straight spout. You could add some coils to it if you wanted to. The only reason I cut a crooked line on one side is just to get a different look on here, but it didn't really turn out exactly the way I wanted it to. Roll that flatter. Stretch it out. Give it a little bit of a change in direction here. This is a pretty loose kind of spout. You can make it clean and straight if you want to. Let's do this. That changes it up a little bit. Now I can cut the top and clean it up so that it's smooth and round. But you probably want to cut the seam where they overlap, cut it at an angle so that you have one thickness, because you can see here like that double thickness, it doesn't look as good. But something like this, That size may look better on this bottle, right? Something to that size, right? So that gives me another idea, but that's just another way to do things. So I'm trying to show you as many different ways so you can have some choice in what you do. Now another way, I'm going to roll another coil, and this time I'm going to pull the handle, pull the spout like I pull handles, but I'm going to use that wooden dowel to get a different effect. So this time I'm tapering my coil, so one side's going to be smaller than the other. Straight. Straight. Alright, so this one's going to be a little longer, but I'm going to pull it skinnier too. So start with the big end on the bottom. And when you put a dowel into the clay, you want to really try to get it in the center of it and try to keep it there until it gets to the bottom. Oh, that was off. But since I'm pulling it, it's not going to be that big a deal. Alright, so I want to roll it just a little. That'll help even it out some. Alright, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to start to pull it like a handle. But I want to keep the dowel inside it. And I'm going to hang on to the clay up here. Alright, so it sticks. I'm going to start pulling this way. I'm kind of twisting the clay a little bit too because I want to create some ridges. I'm not worried about this part because I'm going to cut that anyway. You don't have to put ridges in it. I just do because I'm going to twist it and it's going to make it seem a lot more twisted when I do it. So you can see the ridges that I'm putting in it, like by doing that with my thumb. I'm just kind of rotating it with my top hand as I'm going along. All right, so now I'm going to cut. Top right here. Alright, so now the top's cut, and I can cut the bottom a little bit too. I'll cut the bottom more later if I need to. I'm just getting it somewhat in position. Now I need to dry my hands off some. Alright, so basically this clay is stuck onto the wood right now. So if I take my fingers and hold this, I can start to turn that. And you can see those lines really twist. Now the hardest part is getting it off of this, but it seems to be going okay. I'm just pushing from behind here. So now I have a twisted spout. So now I want to work on the bottom. I just want to stretch it out a little bit. So I'm kind of looking at some of the lines that are on here and just following them around as I'm pinching, so it goes all the way to the bottom. And now I can work on the top. So I can put this part back in and work on this part. Just trying to smooth it out. And I'm angling it down a little, so the highest part is closest to the wood. Use my finger and stretch it out a little bit. So this is definitely a little bit funkier way to make a spout. And that one's pretty tall. Kind of makes this look like a deranged pumpkin. So these things, you can also bend them, right? You take your stick and don't put it all the way in, and you just kind of bend it a little bit. That gives it a way to pour out. So if you're attaching to make a teapot or something, so it's kind of the same principle as the bottle, right? You can cut this base so that looks like it wants to pour out. All right. So now we need to get a handle to actually attach. Clean up a little bit. So I have one that I like that I think I want to use. This one's a little bit taller than the other one, but I'm probably going to end up cutting it. I like that. I mean, this is definitely a funky kind of bottle, but it'll work. So I want to stretch this out. So I'm just kind of flaring out the bottom, make it a little wider. So I have a little more surface area to attach to my pot. Now I like that it's a little bit bent, right? I'm okay with that. That's for this particular pot. This is a choice. This is a loose pot. I want the handle, the spout to be loose also. So when I decide where I want it, I mean, I could put this over on the side if I wanted to, and it's still a bottle, right? You know, and I could put a little handle here. I may do that. I think I like that. And we'll put a little handle on there. All right, so I'm going to trace where this is going to go because I've got to have a hole for it. All right. So I know where the outside edge of this goes. So I'm going to cut a hole somewhere in here. So when I cut the hole, whatever knife you're using, you want to angle the blade so the point goes in. So you're cutting at an angle. So the plug that you're cutting out doesn't fall down in there. Then you can clean that up a little bit. Right now, I mean, just pay attention to details, right? So I want that part to be smooth. I don't want it to be rough. And it's not a big hole, but this is not a big spout, so it'll fit. All right, make sure I got the right direction. And score. So now I'm ready to attach it. Go ahead and score this part. Score the bait. Slip. Now I'm going to push this edge down so I get a good seal. You know what? I gotta put it on there crooked. All right. I'm just gonna redo this a little bit. This is better. All right, just score that again. That's better. Now the base of my bottle, this part, the body, like it was made the other day, so it's a little stronger, so I can push on it a little more. If it's wet, it's going to be harder because you'll push down and then you'll lose your dome that you have, that curve. And I don't want to lose that. But I do want to add something else to this, like make this connection look better. So I'm going to put a coil around here and then kind of work with that. It's going to be a really small coil. I want it to be pretty even, but I want it to be small. All right, so now I'm going to take this and just lay it around the base. right, so now I'm going to push down, and I'm pushing towards the bottleneck.